bitches and bros and non-binary hoes? It's ya boys, the dress-up disasters. I'm Alycas cosplay, and I'm joined by the lovely
Circuit.
And today we're going to talk about the most recent convention we attended, Vancouver FanExpo. It's time to get angry, lads.
So, I know a lot of our listeners probably went to FanExpo.
I've had y'all in my DMs.
Oh, yeah. So, FanExpo is a convention close to my heart, and I'm sure a lot of other people would agree in the YBR community. Mm-hmm. But there's been a trend the past few years, really, especially since the pandemic.
I'd say, it kind of started in 2020. I feel like it went downhill, and people forgot after, post-pandemic, and they thought they could get away with continuing that way.
Because people were excited to be back at Con, because FanExpo was the first one back in the area after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Restrictions were lifted. Now, Alycas, do you want to fill our audience what this glaring, consistent issue is?
So, the Vancouver Convention Center is a multi-story building. It has a lovely large basement, and then a building with, 2 floors, 3 floors above?
Yeah, but usually
convention centers,
events we go to anyways are limited to at least the basement and then the main floor. You don't really see a lot in the upper floors, because those are a lot of, offices, I think.
Yeah, but it is a large convention center. It is by no means tiny. It's not, necessarily the size of, the Summit building in Seattle or the Gaylord
Especially when you consider that it's connected underground to the Pan Pacific.
Exactly. So, not a small building. But what FanExpo has been doing since it moved to this location has been consistently putting the convention just solely in the basement. Now, in 2022, they did have ticketing upstairs, and that made the bulk downstairs. There was, more space for stuff.
Yeah, because there's a big room divider that'll cut the basement in half.
Yeah. Because on one side, in 2022, they had the main stage and all of the seating and the eatery places. I'm
pretty sure they also had the 2 medium-sized stages over there as well, directly across the hall.
Yeah, and then stage. The small stages were kind of on the complete directly on the other side of the room divider, and then they had
typically where the cosplayer panels get shoved.
Yeah,
I have some serious beef with how FanExpo Vancouver treats cosplayers, both as guests and as attendees.
Yeah.
I'll get into that later.
This is gonna be we are just gonna rant for the next hour or more. So buckle in, strap in, lads.
This is how not to run a convention 101.
Yeah. So this year they kept with just putting everything in the basement, but included putting ticketing, the food place, everything in the basement. And then for Saturday, so you have your typical 3-day passes and your day passes. Well, for Saturday, FanExpo decided they were also going to add after 2 p.m. passes on Saturday.
That was around last year, and it was still a bit overcrowded on the Saturday, but not, you could still kind of move throughout the hall.
Yeah.
But this year, they also decided to add... After selling out on both of those, after 3 p.m. tickets, and they also sold out of those.
So for Saturday, you would have everyone that bought a 3-day pass, everyone that bought the day pass, everybody that bought the after 2 p.m., and everybody that bought the after 3 p.m. passes post 3 p.m. It was a horrific sea of people. You could not move.
It reminded me of those really horrific, scary almost looking lobby shots that came out of ALA a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Before they improved their crowd control.
Yeah.
Because it was...
Because the convention had us tap our badges to get in and out of the con, and so they could have very easily used that as a means of limiting how many people could be in the convention. They also weren't letting people, stop to take a break or anything like that. They were very specific about where people could be.
Yeah.
And you had to, go. And, like 25% of the overall basement was taken up by the ticketing area, and you could only stand in the ticketing area for so long before security was like, okay, if you have like activated your badge, you need to be out of here. And it just was like, oh, it was so annoying because like there was nowhere to sit or stand or move on the Saturday. If you needed to calm down, if you were like, I was talking to somebody who started having a panic attack because it was so crowded downstairs, and it took her like almost 20 minutes to get outside to have a panic attack. And like, you're not thinking the best when you're overstimulated by the crowd, on the verge of a panic attack. Getting out of there was really difficult. And then once you got upstairs,
like, it's also important to note that even though half of the convention space, like in the basement, wasn't vendors, you had to go through the vendors to exit.
Yep.
They had all the other doors closed for entry only in like the quieter areas where like the main stage was and registration was. They forced you to exit through the overcrowded vendors hall, no matter what. Because
the convention center, the basement has like this big, huge hallway, and there's these huge escalators that go, like, that ferry people in and out. And in that external hallway, it was also split in half. And so one half was basically you were being herded towards ticketing, and you couldn't stay for very long there. And you couldn't leave through there either. People would get mad at you and make you go through, like, ticketing area, even if you hadn't purchased a badge and you were just going in there to use the bathroom. Right, because upstairs, you weren't allowed to use any of the bathrooms upstairs. You had to go downstairs to use the bathrooms. And there was somebody else that I know that was telling their story about how this, like, one of them had a pass, and the other two were just friends that were kind of, like, hall-conning it. And they just needed to use the bathroom, and they couldn't use the bathrooms upstairs, so they were just going to go downstairs, use the bathroom, and then take the escalator back up, which that escalator has 2 that go down and 1 that goes back up, so they could have easily been able to get back upstairs. But security berated them and wouldn't let them go up. And, like, finally they were allowed to, like, go, but there was somebody else that I heard of on Friday who was forced to purchase a badge for the day simply so they could leave, because they got down the escalators and security would not let them go back up the escalators because they were like, no, you have to check in and you have to check out.
That's fucking stupid.
Oh yeah, no, the stories I've been hearing, because I put a call out on my story on Instagram for people to tell me their stories, so that way I can put things together for like the podcast and then also for my personal YouTube channel.
I haven't seen most of these stories, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here like vibrating with rage. I'm like, this is the hill I'm dying on, guys. FanExpo, get your shit together because I'm coming.
One thing I'm interested to know about like a lot of these stories, specifically about that kind of thing, is if it was the convention security or if it was the volunteers, because I know
it was convention security.
Because the something I see a lot with like convention discourse when conventions do things shittily, is people place blame in the wrong avenues, thinking that they're placing blame on the right ones. So like, for example, when it's a con security issue, the convention that runs the convention centers usually have to use the convention center's contractors. Yeah. It's not really up to the convention itself on who they get in for security. So if you have problems with security specifically, and sometimes this goes for food too. Yeah. Like FanExpo, they use the convention center staffing for food. I think KomoriCon does the same. Yeah. Right? If you have problems with things like that, those
ECC and SOC also use the convention.
Yeah, those are things you have to talk to the actual convention center offices about, because the convention can't do anything about it.
Yeah, and so
even if they wanted to,
because I hear every single year, both for AR and FanExpo, people constantly complain about the security, and that is a convention issue, not the convention center issue,
not the convention issue.
Yeah.
So if you want to see change.
With the security, because I know I do, I'm going to be emailing them about that.
I've heard some pretty horrific things about the security at the convention center for the past few cons now.
I've been hearing things that they've been terrible since, like, at least 2019. Because I was there at the AR one year when they wouldn't let a lady into the building. She was in a wheelchair, and she had her service dog, and they refused her entry.
Yeah, and then at FanExpo last year, they had, I assume, the same security.
Yeah.
And they decided FanExpo, and this is definitely partly a FanExpo problem too, because they purposefully scheduled the cosplay competition to end after the convention center hours.
Yeah.
So, for me, as a competitor in that competition last year, I had placed my stuff because we weren't allowed to bring anything backstage because FanExpo doesn't allow that for, various and sundry reasons. And so I had friends manning a booth in the vendor's hall. So I was like, hey, can you hold my stuff while I go do this, and I'll come back and get it? No problem. So it's like my wallet, my ID, important shit that I can't leave without. And they're like, yeah, no problem. We'll hold it. And I leave the cosplay competition at the end to try and get my stuff, and security wouldn't let me grab my stuff because the convention was over.
Yeah.
Because it was closed.
Yeah.
And really, there's not a whole lot I could do better because, the convention is closed.
Yeah.
Like, as a vendor, I wouldn't want people just roaming through after hours. Like, I can't necessarily blame them, but, like, why the fuck schedule a cosplay competition after the closing hours of your convention?
Especially when you cannot bring anything back with you behind, for the competition.
Yeah, because FanExpo competition doesn't allow handlers. They don't have a green room where you can store stuff, and they don't allow you to carry things backstage.
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantee, you can place anything down.
Yeah.
Sometimes a couple people a year will get away with it. Like, there was a Madoka cosplayer in the competition this year that was able to have their stuff backstage and grab it after they ran off. Mm-hmm. But typically that's not a very common thing.
Yeah. Like, I ended up having my boyfriend take my pass on my phone because I didn't sew pockets into my cosplay. I know.
I didn't either, but that's what corset belts are for.
But also, I was wearing a hanfu, and the construction method I used, I was looking at it, and I was like, there's no way I can put pockets in this. It would, A, impede flow of the fabric, and B, everything was French seams. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't really put a pocket into French seams.
No.
It's...
Another thing about the overcrowding issue that I want to touch on, before we move on, probably to some of the cosplay stuff, because, oh my god, there's so much.
I still have so much to talk about the overcrowding, actually.
But there's one thing I really wanted to note on, is that FanExpo considers themselves a family-friendly con. It usually happens over Family Day weekend.
Yep.
For this year, they didn't because of the Invictus Games or whatever happening that same week. Mm-hmm. But
they still consider themselves very much a family-friendly con. There's the kids zone.
Kids zone, a lot of the programming is geared toward kids.
Yeah. They advertise it as bring the whole family, like it's a family thing.
Yep, they allow discounts for family passes.
Yeah,
where you could bring the whole family.
Yeah, because they got the 4-person pass, 2 adults and 2 kids.
Yep, and when you have an event that's overcrowded, your event becomes unsafe for children.
Yeah.
Because they so easily get trampled over.
Yep.
There was an earthquake on the Friday in Vancouver that was registered as 5.0.
Yeah.
If there was an aftershock that was stronger than that, the kids would have been trampled alongside some of the adults.
It was so packed in the convention center on the Saturday that had there been some type of emergency that resulted in an evacuation of the building, there would have been deaths. Not there could have. There would have been someone trampled in the crowd.
It's only a could have because it didn't happen.
Exactly. They are playing with fire. Somebody I talked to who was there on the Sunday, there was somebody who got injured, and it took 15 minutes for them to be able to get first aid services to them because of the crowding, and that was on a Sunday. Then there was another girl that I witnessed injure herself, and they couldn't get her out because the crowds were so packed, and this was on a Sunday. This wasn't even the worst day. And so they ended up...
And I will mention that Sunday was the only day that didn't sell out of tickets for the convention.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how packed it was for the sold-out days.
Yeah. Because I have, video I took on the Sunday, and it was still incredibly packed. And Sundays are usually, the least packed days. Yeah,
because I was fine to get around on the Sunday, but I'm also a fairly able-bodied, tall person.
Yeah.
Right? Anyone who's even slightly less able
Well, like, Aisha and I held hands most of the Sunday because it was just the two of us, and it was so much easier for us to get through crowds if we were, like, attached to each other.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, every time, like, we weren't holding hands, one of us was like, ah, shit, where's the other one? I've lost them. And...
You know, it's conventions like these that make me realize just how, like, Orpheus would have turned around.
Yeah. Ouch. But, yeah.
Gotta check on the homies.
Yeah.
Make sure they haven't been sucked into hell again.
Yeah. It's just, because the girl that I saw, she was a part of the Idol Fest that was on Sunday. She did a jump and twisted her ankle, and they couldn't even end up getting her out to get first aid. They had, like, sat her down at a chair next to the cosplay guests because she twisted her ankle and she couldn't, like, get out because the crowding was too bad. On a Sunday! And so, yeah, like, I have so many stories. There was one person who reached out to me, and I can't talk much about this story for some, like, not to you, obvious reasons, but for reasons I can't share. It took 20 minutes, or 25 minutes, to go from one side of the convention to the other. I want to preface that story with, it takes 10 minutes to get from the Summit building
the top of the Summit building to the top of the Arch building.
In Seattle. And you're telling me it took 25 minutes to cross what is essentially 100 feet?
Yeah, like at the basement to the FanExpo, like the convention center FanExpo is held in, is maybe the size of a football field.
Yeah, maybe. And you're telling me it took 25 minutes to cross it because of the press of people? If a crowd surge would have happened for any reason, there would have been injuries and death. Because, like, if that happened, like, FanExpo's playing with fire in the fact that, like, they're lucky something catastrophic hasn't happened because that will shut their con down. They're like...
I'm waiting for the day the fire marshals do it, because considering I'm pretty sure they already fined them $10,000 a year for overstuffing.
I was contemplating calling or something.
Oh, there's been a lot of talk online about getting some sort of petition started to either raise the fine or actually get them shut down unless they, like, change.
Yeah.
Because it's so bad.
It was, like, a genuine, legit, like, safety concern. It's not people going, oh, I wish there was more space, like, it was a little cramped. It was, I'm concerned somebody's child would have gone missing. I'm concerned that somebody that was hobbling with a cane would have been trampled.
Yeah.
I'm concerned there would have been serious bodily harm.
On Saturday, my girlfriend's nephew was with us, 10-year-old, and I was concerned that they were going to get separated at some point in the day.
Well, yeah, they had to have, like, a gorilla grip on his hand just to make sure that, like, they didn't lose this kid. Like, if, like, I would not want to have a small child with me on that Saturday. Because, like, I passed one family, they had 2 small children, probably, like, ages 5 and 7, and the look on the parents' faces was just pure terror. And they, like, it was one parent at the front, one parent at the back, and, like, 3 kids in the middle, and they were all really little.
Like, it's hard enough to keep track of kids when they're well-behaved.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
And then you add in,
like... You put them in practically a Candyland of their favorite... all of their favorite things surrounded by 30,000 people.
Yeah, well, because that's the other thing. Like, AR rents out the top, like, the first floor and the basement, and they have annually 20,000 plus that attend that convention. I read a report online that about 35,000 people attended FanExpo this year, and they only rented the basement.
Yeah,
you're telling me they had
AR still gets stuffy.
Yeah,
down in the vendors hall.
Yeah,
although arguably you could say that a lot of that stuff is because of the heat, but you know, either way.
Yeah,
it's still a lot of fucking people for that space.
And also, like, between the aisles in the conventions, like
the layout was also super weird.
It was like a maze. And you would end up going in a circle trying to get out.
Because, like, the vendors hall, you know, this had straight aisles. Okay, you know, fair enough. That's easy enough to navigate. And then when it switched to artist alley, instead of also having like just clear cut aisles, it was almost like they had squares of booths where all four sides were facing, like, were all booths.
Yeah.
So you'd have to go across one way and then go across.
You're having like crisscross back and forth to see things, and it was like terrible. And also the spacing between booths was not enough for people to be looking at either booth and then also having 2 lanes of traffic pass between. There was only enough space for people to be looking at the booths and 1 lane of traffic to be passing, which means unless you are making your aisles have only one direction each way, you are going to have massive bottlenecking. And that's what happened.
Yeah, which by the Sunday, the attendees kind of figured that out, so they kind of made their own one-way path, at least through Artist Alley.
Yeah.
Because Artist Alley in any con gets really tight, no matter kind of what they do, because it's one of the more popular parts of a convention.
Yeah.
So, like, attendees who are more seasoned kind of get a grip, kind of have, like, a handle on how to navigate the crowds. But FanExpo is like a very much a beginner convention where you get a lot of new attendees who don't maybe know the con etiquette or what have you. So that in itself can make it problematic at best to get through.
Because, like, I felt on the Friday, so the Friday it was open from like 12 to 7, but the only people who could enter from the 12 to 3 portion were people that had the 3-day badges.
Or something higher.
Or something higher. And then the Friday only passes were from 3 until close. And so that first 3 hours of the con, even walking around with, like, minimal people in there, I was looking at the hallways between the booths and was thinking to myself, this is going to be disgusting with a bunch of people in here because there's not enough space between the booths. There was only like 3 people wide. Like, it was maybe 8 feet between booths.
If that, yeah.
And that is just not acceptable. You need like minimum 10 feet between booths.
So I just want to kind of switch gears a little bit since we've been rambling for a little over 20 minutes just on the overcrowding issue.
Well, that's like the big thing for me.
It's definitely the most dangerous. It's definitely the most dangerous bit.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, depending on fucking whatever contract they have with the convention center, because, you know, venues for conventions can be rather predatory in their contracts.
Yeah.
So, you know, depending on what that contract looks like, it's kind of hard to tell what FanExpo is able to actually do to change, like, how they have the con layout itself and stuff like that, right? Granted, that doesn't mean they can't limit their passes. You know, I definitely think that no matter what their contract states, they can't, like, they can pull back on how many tickets are being sold, especially on Saturday.
Because if it is true and they can't rent the upstairs, they need to be limiting pass sales.
Yeah. But I want to switch gears a little bit to the cosplay aspect of FanExpo, because they have a pretty, at least in the Vancouver area, a rather prolific cosplay competition.
Yeah.
And anyone who's been going to...
It's a big, like, novice. Like, it's a good place to start.
Any person who's been to a convention in probably at least the past decade understand that cosplayers are the lifeblood of modern convention culture.
Yep.
Like, if you don't have cosplayers going to your event, you don't have an event.
Yeah.
At least not one that lasts.
Or it's like an old people event.
Yeah.
Or like a very specific type of, like, toy trader event.
So tell me why the fuck cosplay prejudging was in the fucking hallway in a dimly lit tent without being on the map.
Yeah. And then
across
also
the hallway from the cosplay red carpet, so and also the major meeting location for cosplay meetups. So when Alycas and I had our prejudging, the red carpet event, which has 500 people in a tiny, cramped little hallway, a giant arcane meetup was also happening at the same time, which there was easily 100 people because of that, while we were trying to talk to the judges in this tiny, dark tent, because it's like they just wall it off with black curtain.
The tent also was right next to the accessibility pathway for people to get to the elevator. So while you're standing there waiting in line to be prejudged, there's people with strollers and wheelchairs constantly, like, coming through the line, and so then there's people being like, oh, you gotta get out of the way. And it's like, okay, well, why put the tent here if this is the accessibility point? Because we're clogging the hallway to get these people out of the convention center if they need things. And then it was also right next to the exit doors, so you couldn't stand on the other side of the tent waiting to check in, because then staff would come out and go, oh, you've got to move because this is a fire hazard, you're next to the door.
Oh, good to see FanExpo cares about fire hazards.
And then, like, I was almost late for my prejudging slot, or, like, sign in, because of the mass amounts of crowds. It took me like 25 minutes.
Well, and wasn't there another competitor near you guys trying to get to prejudging too, and no one knew where it was, because even in the in the email, all of the competitors were given basically confirming their slot, and so
they didn't tell us where.
They didn't tell us where prejudging was. I had to specifically ask one of the judges on this Friday night, and thank fucking God I did.
Yeah,
because there was no signs indicating where it was, aside from one sign outside of the tent.
So you'd have to find the tent and then go, oh, there it is.
The 4-foot squared tent.
Yeah, it was so little. Like, when I walked into that tent, it was like, the judges were like backs to the wall. I had just walked into the tent, and there was maybe a foot or two between me and the judges, and I'm like, how the heck are they supposed to look at my costume like this?
Yeah. Well, especially because, like, at least yours, it was, like, a lot of light colors, so that can still kind of be seen in dim light. But, like, my costume's a lot of blacks and dark grays.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how many details are you actually able to see under this tiny little LED spotlight?
And a lot of the competitors at the contest were also wearing costumes with dark colors. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how do you know that, like, you as a judge are able to see everything if there's not, like, freaking proper lighting? Like, it just...
Even the coordinator for the competition on Saturday was pissed.
She was so pissed
about, like, the treatment of the competition and just cosplayers in general at the convention this year.
Like, she was telling everybody as we were lining up and waiting for our...
She was telling everyone to get in the comments.
Yeah, she was like, get in their comments, email them, tell them this is unacceptable. Like, things are fucked up.
FanExpo has kind of been pushing cosplayers out and treating them worse and worse and worse every year, and I'm getting so sick of it, because FanExpo was dying before the pandemic. Because the competition is fairly new. It started in 2019, and attendee submitted panels was only a year before that. And a lot of those are also ran by fucking cosplayers. Yeah. The convention was fucking dying before then.
Well, like, the cosplay contest brings as large of a crowd to the main stage as the supernatural actors panel. There were as many people that came for the panel for the supernatural actors as that came for the cosplay contest. So you cannot look me in my eyes and tell me that people aren't there for the cosplay contest. If you can fill up the same space that are there to see Jared Padalecki as the people who came to see the cosplay contest, you need to put more effort into your cosplay contest.
Not to mention that the competitors in the competition are paying to be in it.
Yeah.
By buying a badge.
You have to have paid for not a 1-day badge, but a 3-day badge to be eligible to enter the cosplay contest.
Competitors, are paying to be content for conventions.
Yeah.
Right? Even I know with the cosplay guests at FanExpo have a history of not being properly compensated either. So the judges are also not getting paid for their work for the convention a lot of the time. Right? I don't know exactly what the nitty-gritty on the contracts were for this year, but I know last year and the year before that, the only compensation they had really was a badge and maybe a hotel room, maybe. But that's the bare fucking minimum.
Yeah,
especially considering the cosplay guests at FanExpo are expected to have a strict schedule with strict break times.
Yeah, like, if you are expected to be in cosplay for 10 plus hours, that is a very physical toll on the body. They aren't given a lot of...
participating in paneling and programming.
Yeah.
Right, because a lot of the judges also have multiple panels happening throughout the weekend.
Yep.
Right?
Multiple panels, they need to judge the cosplay contest, they need to be at their booths for, like, 6 hours, and do all of these things, and it's like, you're gonna give them a badge? That's it?
A badge and a pat on the back.
Like...
Good job.
You're not getting, like trying
Good
to
job,
pay
nameless cosplay guests. Good job.
Yeah, like, paying your cosplay guests in quote-unquote exposure is bullshit. Like...
If anything, the con gets exposure from the guest being there.
Yeah, because the only guests that I went up to and spoke to or interacted with at all at FanExpo were the cosplay guests. That was the...
have them kind of oddly segregated from the rest of the celebrity guests, which I find
they had them,
odd.
like, on the other side, like, in a corner.
Which, like, a part of me doesn't mind, because that means it's easier to actually go up and talk to them, because there's less of a crowd around.
Yeah.
But also, I'm like, this feels oddly segregated.
Yeah. It's like, oh, here are all of our lovely, wonderful voice actors and actors, and
then
over
here are
there...
our guest wannabes.
Yeah, there are the cosplayers. I know, we have cosplay
They're
guests
cringy.
here. Cringe. I mean, I guess one of the things you do get out of it is that really cool sign.
Yeah, I do want one of those signs.
I want one of those signs.
Shamelessly.
Not gonna lie. Like, oh yeah, absolutely shamelessly. This is a plug. I want one of those signs. They are really cool.
Maybe not from FanExpo, though.
Yeah.
Unless FanExpo actually listens to their fucking attendees for once in their
Well,
goddamn
it's funny
life.
because when they put out their Instagram post for, like, thanks fans, here's the dates for next year, they're
getting ratioed so fucking hard.
out of the 140 comments left on that post, there are only 7 comments in their favor. 7. You know there's a problem when only 7 out of 140 comments have anything nice to say. And those are also the only comments that FanExpo has liked or replied to.
And that's also just on Instagram. That's not counting all the comments they've been getting on Facebook, because a big part of their clientele base uses Facebook primarily.
Or the emails they're receiving, or the DMs they're receiving.
Or the feedback on the feedback survey that they send out every year.
Yep.
Which I fucking hate the fact that you can only use the link once.
Yeah. Because if you bought multiple passes under that
email, you only can enter it once.
Oh, that's some bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Just, I really... And here's the thing. Like, we've just spent 32 minutes shitting on FanExpo. But I want to preface... Like, I want to... Like... I don't want FanExpo to fail. I want FanExpo to succeed. I want FanExpo to be a con.
Especially after hearing, like, how cool their other events are.
Yeah. Like, I want FanExpo to stay in Vancouver. I want it to be a great experience. Yeah. Because we need family-friendly cons. We need those entry-level cons. That's a great place for people to, you know, be there... opening their eyes to, like, all the different communities that are
It was my
there.
first con back in 2013.
It was one of my first, like, it was my second convention. I've been going to FanExpo since 2017. I like FanExpo. They just need to either get more space or limit ticket sales. Like, that would fix so many of their problems.
It's like, yeah, a lot of people are going to get pissed if they can't get a ticket if they limit the ticket sales, but it's going to be a better experience all fucking round.
Yeah.
Because I also heard that there are people, like, having issues getting refunds for things, too, this year if they couldn't attend for whatever reason. So
because... because of the way that FanExpo is run... there are a lot of guests that end up canceling last minute, and I have to wonder if it's because of guests being concerned about their own safety because of things like overcrowding. Because back in 2020, I was walking the con floor. It was a Saturday. It was quite busy. Like, it was not as packed as this year, but it was quite busy. It was quite packed. And I happened to pass a singular security guard, and then like 5 feet behind him was Christina Ricci. Enough space for someone, because he had his back to her, to easily step in and like crowd her. And like I happened to make direct eye contact with her as I passed by, and there was like legitimate fear in her eyes. Like she looked terrified. They had one guard with her, and he was ahead of her and like enough of a distance where she could, if somebody wanted to, cause bodily harm very easily to her person. And I have to wonder if that's why, like, sometimes their guests continuously cancel on them. Because...
Yeah, because I found there was a lot of guests this year that just conveniently didn't check the expiration on their passports.
Yeah.
Because, like, 2 or 3 guests canceled because of passport expiration.
I think it was more like,
which
3
is really
or more.
Odd.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean 3 or more guests at your convention all suddenly couldn't come?
Like, right after the pandemic, I get that being an excuse if people aren't traveling. They aren't looking at their passport. But I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that has a concern. And then both of the Doctor Who actors that they had as guests canceled last minute. They have
the 2 leads from Daredevil canceled last minute for the 2nd or 3rd time in a row this year.
Yep. So like you have to wonder what's going on in the background for these people to all suddenly be canceling, because from what I've seen, there isn't enough like security or separation in place for the guests.
I also just want to add another point. So I've, as you've seen on the podcast, we do panels.
Yep.
Alycas and I both do panels at conventions every so often. I started with my first panel at FanExpo last year, which was an experience. It wasn't necessarily a bad one on FanExpo's end, but there was definitely things I would have liked to have actually seen. Like I was told I was going to have a tech guy, and I did not have a tech guy, and I needed a tech guy. But it was figured out and whatever. But this year we submitted for a panel, and instead of being denied, we were ghosted.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
And I noticed a trend with the people who I knew who were getting panels approved, which, nothing wrong on them.
Yeah, I love when, people get their panels approved. That's great.
Yeah, but everyone who got approved was remote running 2 or more panels over the weekend already. So that tells me that FanExpo didn't want to comp all the badges, so they purposefully approved people running multiple panels, so they would have to approve half of the badges.
And then wasn't somebody whose multiple panels got approved needed 4 passes and they only got 3?
Yep. And some of the community booths that they had too, so like the SCA booth, that's there every year. The
501st was also having issues with not getting enough badges.
I'm heavily involved in the SCA in the area, so I know a lot of the back end with this, where the Barony were given, I think, half of the badges they were last year, and they're asked to come.
Yeah.
Like FanExpo asks them to come and put on performances and all this stuff.
Because they put on like mock fights, and they have like a big booth.
Yep.
And they are a crowd draw. I remember walking past one of the mock battles that they had out
on
the red carpets. Yeah, the night fights. And there was a huge crowd of people there. Like
they were the halftime show for the competition last year.
Yeah. So like, when you've got these like crowd drawing, things that come in, like a lot of people, same with the 501st, come to see the 501st. They come to see the sets that they put up. They come to see the droids. They come to see the like characters that are all in, like they come to see the characters. And because like it's they bring huge sets and things like that to there. It's a lot of work, and they were also stiffed on badges.
Yep.
So it's like
and they also, because the schedule gets out so late, we weren't sure if we were getting a confirmation or not until the schedule came out about, less than 2 weeks before the convention. And so we had to scramble almost at full price to buy 3-day badges before they sold out so we could participate in the competition we hadn't received a confirmation for yet.
Yeah, speaking of that, we received the confirmation that we were actually accepted into the cosplay contest mere days before the con.
Literally a week ago. On Tuesday.
Yeah, not even a week before the convention. That is when when they were like, hey, actually, yeah, you're in the cosplay contest.
And, like, I know that this year specifically, there was some stuff behind the scenes that was causing that email to be delayed. But that doesn't mean you can't send, like, a follow-up text.
Yeah.
To let the competitors know you haven't fucking forgotten about them.
Especially considering that when you signed up to be in the cosplay contest, when submissions opened, they sent an email being like, yep, we've received your submission. You will hear back from us no later than 2 weeks before the con. And then it was literally a couple days before con. Because, like, I knew people that didn't get accepted to the contest that had already completely finished their costumes. And they were like, okay, now what? Like, I just, rushed out this competition piece, busted my ass for you to tell me, nope, sorry, try next time.
Yeah, better luck next year.
At least they sent out emails to say you didn't get in.
Yeah.
Unlike with the panelists.
I get mad about that for a long time. Like, I know some cons don't give out rejection emails for whatever reason, but my God, does it piss me off that they don't.
It's so easy to write a blanket, hey, sorry, we didn't, for whatever reason, your panel wasn't accepted. Please try again next year.
Yeah. Like, in the time it took to, like, submit and hear from FanExpo, or lack thereof, of anything we entered for this year, I submitted a Dress Up Disasters panel for SakuraCon, heard back from SakuraCon, and received my comp badge for SakuraCon.
Yep.
In, like, less than a month.
And then, like, the weekend of FanExpo is also when we got the mock schedule, right?
It was 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
It was the mock schedule.
Yeah.
And then a week after that, we got the confirmation for the competition.
Yeah.
So I know I think we had 3 days left of the early bird pricing, which was only a $10 discount, which made the badges $90 Canadian.
Yeah.
Which, like, is a fucking insane of a price for the size of convention it is.
Yeah. FanExpo costing $90.
Like, considering...
For you being shoved in a basement? Crazy.
Like, considering SoccerCon is 160-ish Canadian after, like, conversion rates and everything, depending on when you buy, and
covers 2 buildings.
Covers 2 buildings and, like, 9 floors.
Yeah.
And 24 hours of content a day.
Yeah.
Is fucking insane.
Yeah. Because, like, back when FanExpo cost, like, $55, $65 to go for the weekend, I was like, you know what? That's, like, a chill amount of money. Like, that's not too bad. But, like, $90 to be shoved into a basement?
Anime Revolution, which runs in the same convention center and books the other floor, is $80 for the weekend, full price.
Yeah.
FanExpo's $100 full price. Just the standard rate, not premium or VIP or anything like that. That's, like, the standard rate.
And with AR, they have a rave, they have a ball, they have 2 floors of content. They have content running until, like, 2 p.m. and starting at 10 a.m. Or
2 a.m., I think.
Yeah, 2 a.m. And they run, like, so you're getting double the amount of time, double the amount of space for $20 less? Like, FanExpo, you have to do better.
And local listeners will attest that if your convention is being compared to AR and your convention isn't coming out favorably, you need to make some fucking changes.
AR is a convention that lets in registered sex offenders and pedophiles, and I'm telling you it's the better con. That should be a concern. Like, I'm legitimately mad. Like, FanExpo, please. I am on my knees, I'm begging. I want you to succeed. I want it to be a good time. You want a family-friendly event? You need to make it family-friendly.
Oh.
Speaking of family-friendly,
family-friendly, there was a booth front and center.
This is the first booth you see when you walk in.
Directly across from the food court of NSFW body pillows.
So you're sitting there with your family, you've just walked in, and the first thing you see is some little anime girl spread eagle on a body pillow. How do you explain that to your 5-year-old?
And there were some other, like, booths that had similar style art in the artist alley. Granted, to a much smaller scale, kind of shoved in the corner.
Also, they had an AI booth.
They did have
an AI art booth.
They did have an AI art booth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely forgot.
Which I could have, I definitely would have appreciated if they removed.
Because I actually, like, posted it on my story. FanExpo saw it and did nothing.
Yeah, so they definitely knew. Someone at FanExpo knew it was there.
Yep.
And knew that's what it was.
And did nothing. Yeah,
because I can appreciate because, having, been in a couple artist alleys as a table myself, sometimes, when you apply for artist alley, they have you usually submit, like, images of your work, and then, for vendors, obviously that's not really something they can do, because it's, like, mass merchandise. So, based on the location of this AI booth, it looks like they applied for a vendor's booth. So I can appreciate how it slipped between the cracks. However, that does not excuse FanExpo from letting it stay there all weekend.
Yeah. And, like, it was selling, like, t-shirts with AI art on it and candles and posters.
There were travel mugs.
Yeah. So I could see how they slipped under the radar going, no, we've got t-shirts and, like, trinkets and things like that. And, like, it's just fandom merch. And, like, playing it off that way and being able to slip between the cracks. But
yeah, because I have a lot of patience for things slipping between the cracks, really, especially for volunteer run events. A lot of things will happen. People will get in that aren't supposed to.
Yeah, like they let in somebody that was doing blackface.
But, regardless, like, not all volunteers know, like, who everyone is when they're coming in, especially at really busy events and really busy times of day. However, that does not excuse conventions from not removing said unsafe aspects from your convention after you're made aware.
Yeah.
That's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Because, like, my like, my problem with AR specifically, I know Alycas mentioned sexual, like, predators getting let in. It's like, AR is also volunteer run, so if they sneak in, okay, cool, remove them. AR did not remove them. until like 5 hours later.
Yeah.
Like, I think the police had to get involved or something.
Yeah, because, like, local news got involved. Mm-hmm. And
well, we know what we gotta do this time.
Yeah.
I'm also surprised I haven't seen a news story about FanExpo yet.
Honestly, yeah. Because, like, so many people are upset. Like, I have had so many people reach out to me. I've seen online so many people upset about FanExpo. Like, every single person that I know that went, and I know a lot of people that went, were upset. My boyfriend's, he does soccer, and he had a couple of his, like, soccer friends that, because he plays in, like one of those, like, adult, like, leagues, like, township leagues. And there was a couple of his friends that went there on the Saturday, and they had to leave before 3 p.m. because it was too busy. And 3 p.m. was before they unleashed an entire other wave of bodies into that building.
Of who knows how many.
Yeah.
Because it was never announced how many tickets were per wave for the Saturday. So it could be anywhere from 100 to a couple thousand.
Yeah. So you're telling me that whose first experience of a con was so packed they had to leave before another wave of people came in? That's just bad PR for your con. You're not going to have people wanting to come back if their first experience was nearly getting crushed.
Yeah, that's how not to have audience retention.
Yeah. Like, They get people to come to their con because they advertise that they have all of these great actors and voice actors and everything. And then a week before the con, by the time everybody's already bought all their passes, a bunch of those people drop out. And then now the people are stuck going, well, I've already got the pass, I might as well go. And then they get stuck in a sea of people wondering if they're going to lose their kids to the crowd.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people who went to FanExpo for specific guests that ended up canceling.
Yeah. I mean, I was absolutely thrilled to see the Doctor Who actresses. And then they canceled last minute, and I was like, well, I should have seen this coming, A.
And then the guests that I wanted to see, they didn't even have fucking panels.
Yeah.
That I could see.
Well, they put Hayden Christensen up in a room upstairs. So
they had access to the upstairs.
Exactly, and that's how you know that shit's fucked.
That really pisses me off.
Uh-huh.
Because, I would have loved to see Hayden Christensen have a panel at FanExpo.
Yeah.
I would have loved it. But no, I think the biggest guest that had a fucking panel was William Shatner, and you could not pay that man to shut up.
Yeah. That man loves to hear the sound of his own voice. And I mean, get it, I guess. But, so many, to see Hayden Christensen, you had to pay a minimum of $210.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that sounds like a cash grab.
And I'm like, you know what? Get it? They're Hayden.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to see you have a panel.
Yeah, I would have liked to have been able to, view the man with my own 2 eyes.
I want to know how much of a cut the cons take.
Yeah.
From those fees.
Because the fees were egregious this year.
The fees on autographs in general are just fucking skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Why is it for John Rhys Davies or whatever?
Yeah.
Davies?
John Rhys Davies, yeah.
Why is it a $5 difference between an autograph and a photo op? Because it was $100 for an autograph and $105 Canadian for a photo op.
Yeah.
I'm like, that makes
me think he's not charging that much, and the con goes, well, I could take a little bit cut out of this.
Well, because I know cons take cuts out of it in general. I know that's attributed to the price. I want to know what that cut is.
Yeah.
So, because I know inflation's a bitch, but fuck.
Well,
I remember when autographs were $50.
2 years ago at SakuraCon, I got in USD a autograph and a selfie with the voice actor for Tartaglia for $30 Canadian. Because it was $20 American for that. Or maybe it was $30 American and $40 Canadian or whatever. It was not much. I looked at the price and went, yeah, that sounds reasonable. And you're telling me now, the voice actors and things like that, it's $60, $70, $80 to get an autograph with them? Because, inflation and everything, but I want to know if it's cons just realizing they can take more of a cut. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Or if cons aren't paying their guests enough, and so guests are having to raise their prices because cons are greedy little hoes.
Another thing I want to mention about the competition at FanExpo
that
kind of was okay. So when they lined us all up, they told us that they would kind of go over stage procedure, and it was also iterated in the confirmation emails we all got.
Yeah.
Now, FanExpo, it gets a lot of novices. 90% of the competition is fucking novices. And a lot of the journeymen are also people who've never done a competition before.
Well, half of the journeymen, only 2 of the journeymen that were competing this year had any kind of real experience with things. Because the Fallen, this was her second or third competition, and the one that she had won Best Novice in was KCC, which is a very small comp, and she felt overwhelmed. 2 of the journeymen were novices that were bumped to journeyman, and I, who entered at journeyman because I knew that my skills were...
Yeah, because of your sewing experience.
Yeah, because my sewing experience is too high to enter at novice.
However, a lot of the people in the competition have never sat on a stage before, or if they have, it has been once.
Yeah.
Right? So we were like, okay, cool. You could tell us kind of what's going to go on the stage. Because a lot of people in cosplay are also very neurodivergent.
You need to tell me specifically.
Yeah, please tell me what to do.
Specifically, give me step-by-step instruction.
We get ushered backstage in our lines. It's like, okay, so now they're going to tell us. Cool. And they did not. And as soon as you know it, they're pushing the first person on the stage. And I go, oh, shit. Because I'm still in the novice category. It's my second competition. However, thankfully, last year, they did kind of have a little spiel as to what to expect and what to do on stage. So I'm in the line of novices being like, okay, basically doing the spiel for all the other novices.
Yeah, and because you told me what had happened last year, I told all of the journeymen in my line, and they were like, that would have been good to fucking know.
Mm-hmm. And then they flipped the stage orientation backstage. So last year, you came off the stage the same way you went on, and then exited on the stage right. Like, exited off and into the audience because they had sectioned off seating for us, stage right. However, this year, you came on stage right, came off stage left, and then sat in the audience stage left.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine the anxiety that first person had. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I feel really bad for them. Because that first person, that was like their second competition. And the first competition was a one-day con, Akimatsuri, 3 months ago. And that was very much a small competition. Yeah. There was like 10 contestants in total, and that included the walk-ons. So
it's pretty much their first competition.
Yeah. And then they were just shoved out on the stage, and they were like, okay, do your pose. Because I remember kind of hearing the announcer tell the audience what was going to happen. And I wonder if they were hoping we'd be listening, but backstage, you could barely hear anything. Also, talking about how...
on the stage, you could barely hear anything out of the speakers. They need to get some new audio equipment, because, oh my god, I almost missed my cue to walk on stage.
Me too.
I couldn't understand what they were saying.
Yeah. Also talking about how abysmal the conditions were for the contestants, they had us line up outside, like, in the actual just hall right by the bathrooms for like 45 minutes before bringing us backstage.
The amount of times I got asked if this was the line for the bathroom, I lost count.
Like, it felt kind of like we were on display, like a petting zoo. People would come up and take photos. People would walk between us. People would just run up and like just say things, or like, it was very strange. And then we were made to line up backstage. So we stood on concrete for an hour waiting for the waiting for the competition to start.
Yeah. Thankfully, we didn't end up waiting nearly as long as we did last year, because having a gap between the last celebrity panel and the competition was definitely very nice.
Yeah.
Because last year, FanExpo, for very clear, for reasons I can't complain, they didn't want to let all of us competitors back there during the celebrity panels.
Makes sense.
Because they didn't want us back there when there was celebrity guests back there. Cool, fine, chill, lit, whatever. However, they had us line up an hour early, and then the Machete's panel, I think, went overtime a little bit. And then it still took another 20 minutes after his panel for us to be let backstage. So we were standing on that concrete for almost an hour and a half before we got moved backstage. So it was delightful.
Yeah. And then also another thing, when the coordinator, called back the novices, once you guys were all walking, because, 80% of the journeymen, this was either their first con or their second, large thing. She was like, come on, journeyman, you should know what you're doing by now. And we, 4 of us simultaneously were like, no, we don't. And then, the masters on their side were kind of like, you guys should. One of them said something, and I was like, excuse me? Okay, sure. The 2 in the front were pulled from Novice, so this is their first convention. They have no idea what's going on. This is my first comp, so I have no idea what's going on. And the other one, this is her second one. What do you want from us? Like,
yeah, you really can't take someone's experience from just what category they're in, because you have no idea what the circumstances that got them to be in that category.
Yeah.
Even some of the masters, like the person who won Best in Show this year at FanExpo was a novice.
Yeah.
So they're going to be competing in masters at their next competition, at their second competition.
Yeah.
That's the one problem I have with the categories and competitions, but that's could be a whole other episode.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a lot of my complaints.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much everything we've got for FanExpo. That's everything I have.
Yeah, that's kind of covered a lot of what I have. I've ranted about FanExpo long enough. I guess closing statement, FanExpo, please listen to the legitimate, genuine feedback that is being given to you.
It's not hate, it's people wanting to see your content better.
We are not hating on you. We're not saying you're like shitty for our own amusement. It is legitimately us going, these are problems, and if you fix them, your convention is going to be better.
I've seen cons shut down for less.
Yeah.
Kiss you, con.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, FanExpo has an expiration date if they don't fix these problems.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact. Because if they continue like this, it's not an if, it's a when someone gets hurt.
And every year there's a medical emergency anyways.
Yeah.
Just a matter of time until it's a fatal one.
Yeah. Because the minute there's a death at your con, that's it. That's your death sentence. So, please, FanExpo, do better. That's my genuine, I'm begging on my knees, I'm pleading with you. You need to improve in some way.
And I'm sure there'll be more in Alycas' YouTube video when they eventually post it and film it. So
I'm going to be doing that this week too while the anger is fresh.
Yeah. Well, the fire is roaring.
Yeah. Oh, my rage simmers.
Okay. Do you want to do our outro for us? Or shall I? Okay, looking at your face, I'll do it. Okay. This has been Dress Up Disasters, Season 2, Episode 2, FanExpo Recap. If you have an episode idea you want to hear from us, email us at dressupdisasters@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram over at Circas Productions. Again, that is email dressupdisasters@gmail.com or our Instagram at Circas Productions. We also have a merch shop through Teespring, which there are links in various places you can find, probably in the description of this episode or on our Instagram and what have you. And we will see you again in 2 weeks from now. Anyway, bye!